Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the beautiful Kelly Polk. Kelly, how you doing today?
Not too shabby. Thanks for having me.
No, I'm super stoked to have you. This is super awesome for me. Before we talk about why you're here, though, Kelly, I want people to get to know you a little bit. Kelly is a director, actor, writer, and art director, born and raised in the burbs of LA. She has an affinity for all things strange and unusual. Wow, that's a hard thing to say 3 times fast. I can't even say it 1 time. Um, Plant Story, your most recent short film, just won first prize for best horror comedy at Oscar qualifying Flickers Rhode Island International Film Fest. So let's talk about that a little bit real quick. What was it like being a part of that? Is that something that you wrote, directed, and starred in, or what
I
is the deal
did,
with that?
yeah. I just had like too many control issues on this project. I couldn't stay away. Yeah, I also the conception was during the pandemic, which we all had way too much free time during. So
Yeah.
that also lent itself to why I had so many hats. And I love doing so many different jobs in film. If I can do it and it doesn't, mess up the project, then I'm gonna try.
Well, it's amazing because something I've always said is when you're a writer director, you know what you're looking for while you're putting these words to paper. When you're a director and you come in, you get to take somebody else's work and make it your own, which is super awesome and super amazing. But when you're a writer director, you already have every scene planned out in your head before you start rolling. So I think that that's a big step. Now, do we have a timeline on when we may be able to check this out?
So right now it's still currently in the festival loop. It's playing in the South Texas Underground Film Festival, December 2nd in Corpus Christi at the Alamo Draft House. So it's still kind of going around the country, circling the map, but probably next year is when it will be released. It's going to be distributed through Troma Now. And yeah, you can see it on there. I also will probably do a self-distribution on my website as well after it makes its rounds on there.
And be it with trauma, Uncle Lloyd will definitely take care of you.
Oh yeah, yeah. He has been a great mentor, a really lovely, zany man who I've had the pleasure of knowing for the past 5 years.
He seems like the kindest, coolest dude. I've gotten to meet him once, and he just seems like the sweetest guy in the world. So I envy your ability to work with him.
He really is. Sometimes he can have a bit of a tough exterior, depending on what time of the day you meet him at.
Yeah,
But once you can crack through that, he really is like your sweet old uncle.
that's so
Don't tell him I
awesome.
said I'm old though. Um,
Right. he, well, a good thing about this, guys, is I do have all of Kelly's social media links right down here in the description. So what you can do is you can follow her and you can stay up to date on everything that she's doing. And that way, when the film does come out, you'll be one of the first ones to check it out by clicking these links down in the description. But that's not the only thing she has coming up because next year, and this to me is super awesome. Bring On the Damned, debuting next year. You play PJ and Lori. It's an anthology film, so you got a couple different roles in it. How did you land to be a part of this?
Brandon is an amazing director that I've been following for the last couple of years. He's also in the trauma world. I found out that he was making this project, and I didn't know him personally when he made his last film. So, I did the old, hello, you need an
Right.
actor? Guess what? I used to play the drums 20 years ago. Oh, you have a character that now plays the drums? Oh, I think I have somebody for you. Um, so it was really
I
just
knew this would pay off eventually.
yeah, it was really just knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, I love your work. Are you open to having me on your project?" And he was nice enough to trust me, and yeah, it's been really wild. There's one segment that's called Disco Inferno, and I play a character named Lori, more of the main character's side piece. I got a cool little choreographed dance. But the one to brag about really is PJ in the Terror and the Tiger Babe segment, and that is where I play the drummer. Speaking of where we are tigers, and there may or may not be a transformation scene. No spoilers though.
Right.
But there's several music videos that we shot that's intercut with the storyline. It's super cool. We've been shooting all year on and off. So it's been kind of a longer term project. I'm really excited to see it to fruition.
Yeah, I can't wait for you guys to see it either, and I can't wait for me to see it. And the best way for you guys to be a part of watching all of these amazing things is to click these links down in the description and make sure you're following Kelly on everything that she's doing. So, Kelly, in order for you to write a horror project or to star in a horror project or play drums in a horror project, horror has to start for you somewhere. So now, love, I would like to go back to the past and talk about how horror started for you, your first horror movie. And Kelly, your first horror movie was?
Poltergeist.
What an amazing, amazing film. Still to this day, a film that affects me so much. I've talked about it on here before. My kid sister looks just like Heather O'Rourke. And when we were kids, she had the long white blonde hair, and it used to scare the hell out of me because that kid was my sister in the film. So, do you remember about how old you were the first time you had seen it?
Yeah, I was about Carol Ann's age. And not to steal your story, but I was like a little white blonde-haired towhead that my parents used to call me Carol Ann, and I had no idea where that was coming from until I saw this film.
That's
Which I
so
think I
great.
may have been a little too young to see
Yeah.
it. But I found out where the name came from, and it just absolutely scared the living daylights out of me. I think it plays on so many childhood fears, the fear of clowns, the fear of somebody in your closet, the fear of dead people chasing after you. And that just really resonated with me.
Mhm. Well, I feel like, and again, I want everybody to remember everything I say is my opinion. There's no basis of fact in what I'm about to say. I feel like if you're a young lady watching a movie like The Exorcist or Poltergeist, it may affect you a little more than a young man watching those movies because these are your peers. That could be you in that film. You see a young girl that's thrashing on a bed and pissing herself and puking on a priest, or a young girl like Carol Ann that gets sucked into the TV. That's you that you're seeing on there. Whereas a movie like Stand by Me or The Sixth Sense, with a young boy may affect the young boy a little better because they relate to that a little bit more at that age. And watching these movies now, it's amazing to me how film can both transport you back in time, but affect you differently now. Like me as a parent watching these movies compared to me as a child watching them, two completely different viewings. And that's why I want to ask you with Poltergeist, which scene would you say it was, Kelly, that affected you the most?
Ooh, it would be, I think, a tie between two scenes. You have the classic Carol Ann, come into the light, and she is just staring at that TV. You only see the back of her head and her hands on the television, and you just feel that power. And the audio of the white noise is so glaring and visceral. And then my other scene that's tied because I have like a personal experience in some regards with this is the end scene when the pool is disintegrating and all the skeletons are popping out and the mom's caught in it and she's just trying to get away, but the skeletons are trying to grab
Yeah.
her and sink her back down in. When I was a kid around the same age, right before I saw this film, we happened to live by a cemetery. And my father, love him, had this wonderful idea to just drive into the cemetery one night. I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking. I think he thought that I was asleep in the car. But I woke up, had no idea where I was, and just see all of these tombstones around me and started freaking out. And then I come home that night and I kept having this reoccurring dream of the skeletons from the cemetery chasing me and sucking me down into the neighbor's pool, like almost scene for scene what happens in the
Yeah.
movie with the mom. So, that just really scared the shit out of me seeing it happen.
Oh, I bet. I bet. And because it's one of those things where there's nothing scarier than our imagination. But when we see
Mhm.
something that we've seen in our imagination come to life, that's one of those things where it's like, oh my God, I can make things happen. Like,
Yeah,
especially as a kid, like that's a hard thing to understand.
yeah.
Um, so Kelly, we know which scene it was that affected you the most from Poltergeist, but do you have a favorite scene from the film?
So as an adult, I think I have a favorite scene. It's a little twisted, but I think the story behind it is really cool. It's really messed up, but it's interesting that it was caught on camera. So, the scene towards the end of the film when the brother is being entangled by the clown. So there was actually a problem with the prop, and the clown was made of hydraulics, and there was an issue where the hydraulics had like a kink in it and started actually strangling the poor boy actor. So when he's like, writhing, that's like him actually writhing, and it wasn't until after that they realized that something was going wrong, which just gives me goosebumps because,
Yeah.
as you know, and so many people who love this film, there are so many eerie things that happened, after the film and throughout it and throughout all the film's shooting.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is definitely. I've said it, another thing I've said before. If you guys have Shudder, I strongly recommend you watching Cursed Films. They have an episode on Poltergeist, and it's a brilliant episode. It's all about the curses that come with Poltergeist and all the things that have happened behind the scenes. It's an amazing watch. If you get the chance, I strongly recommend checking that out. Now, Poltergeist, Kelly, is part of a franchise. We have the original trilogy, and then we have a remake.
Mhm.
Of the franchise, which one is your favorite?
So I haven't seen the third and the remake, so I can only speak to the first two. And I'm very much an originals gal. I think there have been a few movies that have done it well. And Poltergeist 2 isn't bad. It's okay. I haven't seen it in a while. But it kind of just breaks my heart that we can't be original these days,
I know.
because there's so much inside and people just bank on the movie tickets and in the franchise, which I understand. But yeah, I very much love the original.
Well, see, I think that, well, for me, with this franchise, three will always be my favorite, which is weird because I know it's so late in the franchise, but I have a very, very special relationship with Poltergeist 3. Um,
Ooh.
but I think, on to what you were saying about original horror, I think that people are starting to realize that. Look at what Terrifier 2 just did. Look at what Smile did this year. You got all these movies that are original horror movies that are just out there killing it. Terrifier
Mm-hmm.
2, it cost 250, I think maybe 450,000 to make, and it boxed office 10 million with with absolutely no marketing budget. There was no trailers played widely, and it made $10 million. If this isn't a wake-up call to people, Smile, another one, made over $10 million on a little budget. And people need to open up their eyes and realize that not only is horror in the mainstream where it's at, but look at all the indie horror films that got us through the pandemic, because the indie
Mm-hmm.
horror filmmakers continued to go out there and pound the pavement. And what you guys do throughout the pandemic made a lot of people realize that, we don't want to hear your political opinions, but thank you for keeping us occupied during the pandemic. We appreciate it. Horror is one of those things that I feel like universally helped people through the pandemic. You kind of answered this question already, but I gotta. It's in my script, so I gotta ask you. Remakes, they are all the rage now, and they did have the remake of Poltergeist. You said you hadn't seen it. Would you be willing to give that movie a try?
Uh, uh, um, I would. I think it's closed-minded to say no, absolutely not. Begrudgingly, I would.
You don't
Um,
have to.
I was like browsing the nets, and I saw that it didn't have awful ratings.
It's what I love about it. Because like I said, I'm like you. I'm gonna go into it with an open mind. Carol Ann is not a character in this film. They changed the
mm,
name of the kids, and I actually love that because I feel
okay.
like Heather O'Rourke was Carol Ann, and with her passing, I feel like it would be extremely disrespectful to that young lady to try to redo her again. Um,
Yeah.
but a lot of the bones of the movie is the same. A lot of the
Hmm.
scenes are the same. Here's where I'm going to catch 22. Like, I think that a remake, even if it's a dog shit remake, um, I'm looking at you, April Fool's Day. I think that it can be very, very, even a bad remake can have a good outcome, because people that have never seen the original or never heard of the original can hear of the remake and then go and watch the original for themselves. And then at that point, you're able to go back and, with Halloween 1978, when they did Halloween 2018, the sales on Halloween 1978 went up like 33% that year, because people that had never seen it or people that want to go back and revisit it went back to watch it. And I think that a remake can do that for people. And even if the remake sucks, people still have the original to fall back on. But
absolutely. And I will say I'm guilty of that with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Jessica Biel in like 2000 something. As a 17-year-old kid, I thought, and it's still like looking back, not terrible of the franchise, but then that intrigued me to go back and watch the original. And then I was like, oh, okay, this is where I'm at, but I never would have gotten there if I hadn't seen the remake. So, you do have a point with that, and contrary to what I just said, but
to me, the perfect remake is like Evil Dead 2013 or Child's Play 2019. When you take the original idea of the original film, but you completely make it your own. That to me is the perfect remake. I've already seen the original, and the odds of you doing that any better than they did, very slim. So take their idea and make it your own if you have to do an original or a remake. I'm sorry. But just the original. Like I said, look at Smile, look at Terrifier 2. Horror films make money. Get your idea out there. If all we did is remakes, we would have never gotten a RoboCop. We would have never gotten a Star Wars. If all we ever did was remake. Don't make us miss out on the next Star Wars because you want to go and do another Halloween movie. Stop. Keep buying original horror. So my buddy Ghostface is filming Scream 6. So he's not here with me. But since he's not here, I guess I will ask you my next question. What's your favorite scary movie, Kelly? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Oh, my favorite horror movie of all time. I don't know if it counts as traditional horror, but Santa Sangre by Alejandro Jodorowsky
Very nice. That's a deep cut.
Yeah, that film is horrifying, wild, hilarious, macabre, disgusting. I'm a really big fan of the circus and carny life. So that movie is threaded with that storyline of a little boy who grows up in this messed up family of a mother who worships a cult of this girl who got her arms chopped off.
Who hasn't been there?
Right? Seems like something that we're all into. And the father is the ringmaster of the circus and then gives him this giant tattoo of the phoenix when he's a kid, and it just grows with his body throughout the film, and you see him evolve or devolve, and it's just, so much blood. That movie, I think the story is also horrific and not just what you're seeing.
Well, I want to say this in 100. I'm always about honesty and transparency. We're over 350 episodes now. That is the first time that's been mentioned on this podcast. So we got a round of applause here. So now I've had an amazing time getting to know you, Kelly. This has been a long time coming. And the fact that I've been able to do this with you has been so awesome for me. I'm so excited for what the future holds for you. But before I let you go, we always ask one last question. What we're going to do is we're going to bounce back to the OG Poltergeist. And what we're going to do is we're going to rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not ranking this movie on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. What we're doing is strictly ranking Poltergeist on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Kelly, what would your ranking of Poltergeist be?
I'm going to double it up and say 10 skulls. Because
when you told me that the first thing that ran through my head when you were like, I'm a blonde little towhead, and my parents called me Carol Ann, I was like, oh, it's 5. Right at that moment, I was like, it's a 5 skull. We got this one.
Yeah, no, that perpetuated that dream of the cemetery and the skeletons chasing me for 10 years later. And maybe some therapy too.
Well, and I want to say that it's been amazing having you. And I'm genuinely so excited for what the future holds for you. I can't wait to see you go for the stars and beyond. And I do want to remind everybody, All her links are down here in the description. So make sure you're giving her a follow on social media, not only so you can stay up to date with all the things that she has going on in the future, but when Plant Story comes around, you're going to want to be one of the first ones to watch it. So make sure that you're subscribing to her channels, following her on social media and her website. So Kelly, please don't go anywhere. I have a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.